Hello, everybody, and welcome to Alphabet Scoop, 9 to 5 Google's weekly recap and discussion of the biggest, usually Google-related news. I'm Kyle Bradshaw, and I'm here, as always, with my colleague Abner Lee. And as I may have hinted, we aren't going to be talking too much about Google News this week. You want to take us in a little bit, Abner?
Yes. Yesterday, Monday, was WWDC, which is Apple's big developer conference. So coming off the heels of Google I.O. in May, we thought it'd be nice to do a bit of a recap on what the other big platforms are doing. So jumping right in, it's iOS 17, which this year has more quality of life improvements, I would say, rather than anything major. Rather than a major rethink, which you can say the same for Android 14, excuse me. Now, I guess that's a Freudian slip.
Yes, indeed.
In short, Android 14, like the biggest user-facing feature, are lock screen clocks and customizations. Lock screen shortcuts. It's so far that's what we have. We're not sure if Google has more by the fall, but that's what we're up against, basically. And in comparison, iOS 17 it looks the same, basically. It looks the same. There's no major changes on that front, but there are definitely some key features being introduced.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was how many of these features seem like they're directly lifted from Pixel phones. Not just Android, but like specifically Pixel. The big one obviously is Standby, which basically gives the always-on display more functionality, lifting directly from the Pixel Stand, lifting from At a Glance, lifting from the Pixel tablet, really. It's all about making the iPhone, oddly only the iPhone, I think. I didn't see Standby in the patch notes for iPad.
Yes.
But making the iPhone...
Yes, just for iPhone.
Making the iPhone more useful when it's not directly in use. Though notably, just like the Pixel Stand UI, Standby is only available while the phone is charging, and charging sideways at that. Yes,
at that. I think Apple showed off a third-party dock that leverages MagSafe. But what the particularly interesting thing about Apple's approach, I would say, is how they're relying on widgets, how they're using widgets to basically supply the content. And in that regard, there's a bit more third-party developer option. So on the first-party front, you have weather, you have your calendar, you have photos, music controls, a pretty nice Now Playing UI. And on the third-party front, there's support for live activities. So one example they gave was you can see where your Uber Eats or DoorDash order is. So it's a mix between widgets and very large active notifications, which, yeah, that's pretty nice. We have to see what the Pixel tablet's hub mode. I don't know, the idea of making every iPhone a smart display is an interesting one, but I just think the screen is a bit too limiting. It's too small to be... You need at least a minimum. Like the Nest Hub at 7 inches was already pushing it. It could always be a little bit bigger. And so I don't know how that works for iPhones. But I guess if we want to talk more about the Pixel tablet, this standby mode could very well be a precursor to Apple making their own smart display. And what would presumably be a more expensive smart display.
Oh, yes. No, there's no denying that. Every single piece of Apple hardware is going to be expensive. That's just a given. Yeah, I think Apple's hitting on some of the same things that the Pixel tablet is hitting on, though, by being always available. Like, you are going to have your iPhone with you. And if you work at a desk job, say, you might or probably already do have a dock charger sitting right there that you can just place it on. And then when you're working on your Mac or working on your PC, whatever, your phone can just be doing things in the background. Like, you can be looking at, like you said, your Uber Eats order. It would just be passively there for you. And I don't know, it looks like it's accomplishing a lot of the same goals as At a Glance, but also using a lot of the same things that Android used to do with its ability to offer lock screen widgets.
Yeah, it's so. You made an interesting distinction earlier in saying that you think Apple copied a lot of Pixel features directly. The thing with Pixel features, with At a Glance, with the Pixel Stand, is that Google has never opened it up to third parties in a meaningful way. At a Glance just added like ride sharing status, but that's not really. It's not really something that you can customize.
It's not open to developers, like outside of direct partnerships with Google.
Yeah, it's text at a glance more than anything. It's so text based. You just get to display a few lines of text and maybe an icon. Apple took a long time to make an AOD, but as seen with the widgets, their developer community has slightly better adoption, and that would be nice if Google did something. But the Pixel is not even all of Android.
Right. So I don't know. I think that's what Apple's doing the best, is just leveraging the existing developer community. Like, we'll get into it toward the end of the podcast with the thing that everybody wants to talk about. But everything that Apple, or most of the things that Apple did today, leverage existing technologies that developers are using to just make it easy for these things. Like, oh, your app already has a live activity? Great. Now it's in standby. It's easy, like a snap. Obvious almost.
Yeah, it's obvious. So speaking of widgets, they're doing interactive widgets, which I honestly thought was already a feature, especially something like reminders. But no, it's a new feature, the ability to check-uncheck a reminder, say, or to place a widget for a specific smart home device, like lights, so you can tap it on and off. That's useful.
Yeah, I mean, I've used like a to-do list and grocery list stuff, and not even opened the app, just check boxes right from my home screen. So yeah, it was surprising to learn that was a new feature. That one caught me off guard.
Let's see, what else stood out to you?
I think another directly copied from Pixel and yet majorly made Apple's own is live voicemail, as they called it, or as Pixel fans know as call screen. I think that Apple is doing the cool thing here, which is that it's not sterile. Like the Google Assistant call screen is so sterile. Google reads through its script and talks to the person on the other end of the line and figures out whether or not they're spam, which 99% of the time it's spam. This is not just about filtering out spam. It's about giving an opportunity for your incoming call to have a sense of expressiveness, because it's not just, oh, let me send this to voicemail. It's also changing the way that you appear when you call somebody.
Yeah, that feels like such an expansion of iMessage, or of that ecosystem, of that identity that you have with an iMessage number. That feels like such a natural extension of that. And that is just such a big lock-in potential, a further lock-in potential by customizing how you appear to other people. Contact cards, which it's interesting. They're taking the idea of a contact card and just making it social. There's almost like a mini social network here.
Yeah, I mean, iMessage is a social network. It just happens to use your phone number as a user ID. Like, it very much is a social network. So yeah, that does make sense that they would just extend it further. Like, well, we're already doing this with your phone number. Let's do something else with your phone number.
So the Messages app got redesigned. It's all Messages apps almost look the same, but that was a big focus. Stickers, everybody loves stickers, as Emoji Kitchen proves.
Indirectly by the ability to add custom the ability to add custom stickers, you can now indirectly have Emoji Kitchen on your iPhone.
Indirectly, yes, indeed. I wonder if Apple ever brings that, or whether that's like a fun Android feature that stays.
Oh, that's 100% staying Android. It's one of the only like viral things that Android has done in recent years.
Very true. So the tap. Well, there are many tap features. Where, for example, you could initiate share play, which is like a joint watching experience by holding two iPhones together, and that you could share contact details by bringing phones together. I like the direction that Apple's going, as powered by, presumably ultra wideband and maybe even NFC. I like the idea that you're able to share, that you can make these interactions more physical. And the comparison here is the now dead Android Beam, which is so big on NFC during the Galaxy Nexus era. But since then, Google has moved away, and it's nearby share. It's proximity, but not necessarily by touching, and devices. And undeniably, like, bringing devices together is such a more visceral experience. And I kind of miss that. I kind of wish that came back.
I mean, it seems like Google wants to do something along those lines. They're trying for UWB. They've been putting it in their devices. They've been putting it in their tablet. They're putting it in some speakers that are coming soon. Something is happening with it. We just don't necessarily know what. And I hope that it's more than just Cast and Find My Device. I'd like to see it used in more nice features like this. I'd love to see it in nearby share. Whether or not that's going to happen or how many years it's going to take, I don't know.
So yeah, so that's iOS at a high level. It's coming this fall. Let's talk about watchOS. So the rumors came true. Basically, the widgets. There's a big focus on widgets. By scrolling on Digital Crown, you get a stack of cards that are about half the size of the screen that show like the weather, music controls, stuff like that. And it's almost tiles, basically. You can see upcoming calendar point. It's a mix. It's an interesting mix between tiles and notifications, rich notifications at that. How do you use tiles today? I believe we've discussed this on the podcast before, but I think this is a good idea.
I, at the moment, don't. I think you've asked me this before. I just genuinely don't. I still have the default set from switching back from Pixel 7a to 7 Pro. So I haven't even bothered to look at tiles. I don't know. I don't interact with my watch in that way for whatever reason. It's more about getting notifications. And even then I've been kind of, in a digital well-being sense, focusing less on notifications and trying to be pinged less often. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. I think apps, again, I'm sure I'm repeating myself here, but apps and watches, they are getting better, especially on Wear OS. I wrote over the weekend that stuff like WhatsApp, like the Google Home app, Spotify is always good. That there's some really interesting watch apps, Wear OS apps coming aboard, and it's an interesting balance. Which I think that a certain category of apps that do well on wearables, control apps, music apps, audiobook apps, or whatever. There's a certain category of apps that do well, but beyond that, I don't think the innovation is just there yet, or at least right now.
I can agree with that. I will say that watchOS 10 didn't really impress me, but at the same time, just looking at it, it was obvious how far and away it is from what we have on Wear OS 3 today, even on the Pixel Watch. Like they're not even the same type of device. Almost, it's a little strange.
The thing that felt remarkably telling to me was that apps have color now.
Right.
It's historically all watchmakers, all smartwatches, they're stuck with black backgrounds because of a power standpoint. And in a way, Apple adopting so much color in apps now, it's almost like mini phone apps. It really feels the platform feels really so much more vibrant, and it's almost Apple bragging that they can do more with battery life. They can make it more lively. Again, I don't think that there are that many app experiences that do well on smartwatches outside of, again, like weather and smart home controls, which honestly could argue could be first party experiences, but Apple's watch apps are just becoming mini phone apps, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's good for them that they can advance it, and it makes Wear OS stand out so much.
Right. They don't even seem like they're playing the same game. So I don't know. I've become unenamored with smartwatches in the past couple months.
Yeah, it's past the passive devices, and I think health, which Apple correctly predicted will be is the big reason you wear one. Just going forward, just a passive health collection device, and there's promise in that. But if anybody can do a developer experience, it feels like we're in that moment from Wear OS having its resurgence and Apple making a very big deal out of these widgets, of these light interaction methods.
Yeah, here's hoping that any experiences that end up getting driven by Apple Watch's new experience can end up being recreated on Wear OS. I mean, it's a shame that that's the relationship that exists, but that's where we are for now.
It's absolutely a back and forth, as we were saying with iOS earlier. It's an absolute back and forth. So, okay, we've done our homework. Let's get into the crux of this discussion. Apple Vision Pro. Apple finally announced its augmented reality platform. Actually, you can start that. Tim Cook announced Apple Vision Pro and visionOS as a brand new AR platform. So the traditional definition of augmented reality is that you're actually seeing the world, not to a screen, not to a camera projection, but you're actually seeing the world, and that's augmented by a piece of glass that can display images. That's the traditional definition. So what Apple's doing, you're very much looking through a camera. You're looking. There are many high-def cameras on the headset, and you're looking at it through a 4K per eye screen, and that's incredibly high res. But at the end of the day, no matter how good the fidelity is, you're seeing the world through a literal filter, and that's mixed reality. That's extended reality, which is Google. The name Samsung is using is extended reality by the looks of it, and Google is immersive computing.
Right. I mean, what do you think about this? I like it from the perspective of wanting to be productive with it. Like, I look at it and say, oh, wow, I can just make my Mac screen as big as I want and stretch it across however. I can add fake desktop monitors. I can throw 4 apps around my my field of view or even beyond it, so I can like have a timer that's running behind me and like turn my head and look at it if I wanted to. There's a productivity to this that I find absolutely fascinating, and that's probably all I'd want to use it for. But I was kind of impressed by all of the different consumer-focused things that they were trying to do.
So the one thing I really did not expect was how hard Apple is going as positioning Vision Pro as a replacement to television screens and monitors and computer monitors. That was a really big push that I was not expecting. So the high-level augmented reality has two uses. There's, yes, the ability to put floating screens in your field of vision. That's useful for anything. That can replace your monitor. That can replace your TV screen. Pair it with a physical keyboard, or if you can overlay a virtual keyboard and you can just type in the air or type on a flat surface, that can generally replace a laptop. But at the moment, and with the fact you're wearing a bulky headset, which you're obviously not going to wear out on the street, it makes sense why Apple was just focusing on the productivity aspects and of course the entertainment aspects of Vision Pro. And I think it should have been obvious in hindsight, but I was not expecting how hard they were doing the productivity focus. And I think that's a bit of a big backlash, isn't it?
What do you mean as far as the back? I know there's backlash on some areas, but I don't know about on the productivity standpoint or like even the entertainment. Like some of the entertainment things they were doing looked really good. So
the entertainment stuff is natural, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I don't know, just like the idea of people did not like the idea that you were in an office and you're wearing a headset and with virtual floating screens. That I picked up on that. Like people saying they didn't want to browse the web this way. I thought that was a very big thread of yesterday.
No, I didn't catch any of that because I didn't see too many people talking about it because there were too many obvious things to dunk on this thing for. But I didn't see people because the productivity makes perfect sense to me for a particular type of person. I understand that it's not for everybody, and I would not advocate it for everybody, but I could see it being a good thing in a work situation where you are at a desk, you are not working with colleagues, because as soon as you start adding the social element, the whole thing breaks down.
No, but like it's funny that in the demos that Apple did, it was everybody. There was one person in the middle of an open office or studio, I think, that was wearing the headset, and nobody else was.
Right, because anybody else who would walk in the room would be immediately creeped out by the person with the fake eye screen over their forehead or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's do the entertainment stuff before we dive into our new and future dystopia. Actually, let's do entertainment first. And Disney, they got the best partner on Earth to... You were excited about the Mandalorian stuff, for example. Right, I mean, that was insane what they were doing, like integrating... I don't know, just adding more to it. It could be distracting. It could be a terrible thing in practice. But from the little preview that we got, it looks very immersive and fun. And it could just give you something else to do while you're watching television, because some people can't just watch television. So if you can watch television while sitting in the cockpit of a Star Wars ship and like press buttons and things happen, but the show's still going, like that's cool. I like that idea a lot. Gaming? Oh my God, the gaming that you could be doing on this. I was surprised to see how they did gaming, though.
How so?
The pairing controller. I was surprised to see that it was controller based and kind of not doing.
Yes, I thought there would be so much more fitness stuff.
Right, because that's what Apple's done well. Apple's done that very well. They have all of everything with Apple Health. They have everything in the Apple Watch. I really thought that fitness was going to be a bigger thing here. Like, I was expecting Beat Saber, to be honest with you. I mean, Beat Saber's on everything.
I wonder if it's too heavy or these components are too sensitive, because one thing that the Apple headset is doing, the lenses are moving automatically. They're optimizing to your eye. I wonder if you're moving real quickly, it would be very jarring. If it would break the perfect illusion.
That could be how they make the compromise work, yeah. By compromising that angle of it, they're able to make so many other things work better. Because, yeah, I mean, like, moving around, I could imagine big movements like that would make the iris or the eye tracking struggle too.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, there was that entertainment stuff, like watching in the virtual movie theater, or watching in the wild. That's a typical thing of VR headsets for however long. But yeah, that was productivity and entertainment. So the criticisms that people are making on this, I think, let's start with eyesight. Apple put a whole other OLED screen on the front of Vision Pro, and that's kind of wild. It's how much more expensive is that curved screen or whatever it is? That must be adding tremendously to the cost.
All for the purpose of showing to others what you're doing or whether or not they can see you, which is clever to an extent, but it's also kinda, I mean, they're just outside of Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, it's not. No, I don't think I can ever do eyes. I don't think I could ever do virtual eyes and not have it be creepy. It's just, I don't think I could do that. Could you? Could you stare at the person's fake eyes?
I would need to try it to know for sure, but like just knowing that they aren't real and that it's not actually representative of anything, because isn't it like that you don't even necessarily, like the eyesight doesn't even necessarily follow, right? Like, I don't know, because oh man, I don't know. It seems strange. I get why they did it, because they want people to use this thing and be present in the room a little bit, or at least have the appearance of being present. Something about it.
I mean, it's a good status in these headsets with pass-through need these kinds of status indicators, and maybe this is better than just having a LED light on that signifies that you're currently like watching. Maybe it's that, or I don't know. Maybe this will become a standard feature of all headsets. Maybe this is better than having a light or pulsating thing, which, I don't know, that might be enough to signify that you're talking to somebody, that you're actually looking at somebody.
Yeah, but, they could have.
We need to try.
They could go a different angle with it too, and instead of even bothering with Uncanny Valley, they could just have fake eyes, not the weird emoji eyes, but like, you know, something, a digital representation, something cyberpunky, you know.
Cyberpunky, yeah, that's so. For the past few years going into this, I thought it would be Animoji. You wear like the fox and the chicken that you can do on the iPhone, yeah, and well, the iPad too. These virtual representations where you can like even record a message, it matches your facial expressions. I thought it was going to be that, but what they ended up actually doing for like FaceTime is you make a model of your face. You use the external cameras to make a model of face, and that becomes your FaceTime avatar. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of avatars.
Yeah, I would need to see it, because I mean, like, how different do you think it is in practice from something like Project Starline? Don't they accomplish similar goals, trying to give vaguely similar goals, but like Starline is trying to give a sense of depth to somebody on the other end and represent that. Well, this is taking a digital scan, and I don't know. The tech must be there for it to work well, because if it wasn't, then they wouldn't be able to track your eyes, to use that as your cursor. So it must be there, but I would really need to see it live and in action to really get a feel for it.
Mm-hmm. And the next thing was 3D photos.
Would you like me to play advocate for our dear colleague Ben in this conversation?
Sure, why not?
So because this headset has this incredible camera array that it needs to use to be able to represent the real world around you in the headset, because again, you're not looking through it, it's cameras feeding it back to you. So since it can already put that to your eyes, that means it can also capture that same data, making stereoscopic recordings of moments in time or places that you've been. And Apple has kind of shown this as a way to like relive family memories. But of course, many people, including our dear colleague Ben, have pointed out that implies wearing this ridiculous headset with its fake eyeballs while experiencing tender family moments and therefore not being as present in the room as you can be.
I think this is okay. The idea of 3D images, I think, is inevitable. I think eventually, I don't know, maybe your phone has two camera arrays that are far apart enough that you can do great 3D video or 3D images. I think the format that's going to stay and probably be adopted in the future. So the idea of doing it on a headset is a bit overkill when I think you can eventually do it on your phone. I think Apple added this feature because out of
they could,
trying to justify because they could, and out of justifying and putting stuff and getting it out there that they're doing this and they can do it, and it's great for recording your memories. Honestly, the fidelity of this, I think we should record memories as high res as possible, as accurate, as crisp as possible. And I think that if that currently requires a headset, I mean, it's like you have it on for a few minutes. I don't think that disrupts your memory or other people's memories of the event that much, especially if the upside is so great.
So I would thoroughly disagree with you, because every single thing about a memory is first about you having been there, not about the photograph that you took. The photograph that you took is a way to call back the memory, but the memory itself is made by being present. So the eye contact and just the removing that layer that is between your family and you, that is going to be important. I agree with you that 3D capture is going to probably become a thing down the line. I disagree with you about it being on phone. I could see this being a tablet feature. Maybe next iPad has two camera arrays, or next,
even better for physical distance.
Right. So, there's going to be some form of that in the future, but this particular method of capture in the way that Apple has phrased it, I don't think so. More practical, I think it's going to be way cooler for somebody to be wearing one of these while recording a friend doing like skateboard tricks or something, right? Like, I'm hanging out with my friends. Oh, my friend's going to do a cool thing. Let me record real quick. And even then, real quick is part of the question too, because you have a 2-hour battery and you need to be able to turn the thing on, get into the camera app, and start recording. I don't know how quick that process is going to be, and that's going to be something that Apple will probably be optimizing over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, that was one of the criticisms. I guess the other like big criticism is the idea of anybody wearing a headset, anybody wanting to disconnect from reality. To that, I would say the technology is going to get better. It's going to get invisible. It's the end state of augmented reality is smart glasses that look natural and that are indistinguishable from any other pair of frames that you have. So I'm having a hard time recognizing this criticism that's very vehement.
I mean, yes, the tech is going to get better, but it's going to take a long time before it gets practical enough to overlay it on glasses, do so without generating a lot of heat, do so without having a massive battery that you need to carry around all day long. It's going to take a long time for these things to all come together. So in the meantime, it is just going to look like this for a while, and I can see why people would be reluctant. And yeah, but it does more or less fly in the face of all digital well-being, digital well-being efforts.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay, so that's that. What's Google going to do is the next question.
Well, the one thing that I hope they copy is bringing every Android app to their XR platform. Like, I want to be able to just put on my Samsung headset and open the same app that I use on my phone. Maybe even literally the same app from my phone.
Yes. They're literally the same app. And it's in one respect, Android's big tablet push as of late makes sense. If our Google and this Android-powered headset, which is more or less set in stone in terms of Samsung and Android have announced that it's coming, an Android immersive reality OS is basically coming. That's guaranteed at this point. And if it's going to run Android tablet apps, it makes the ongoing push make sense. So yeah, we're waiting for Samsung. So it's a partnership between Samsung making the hardware and presumably the screens and the cameras and the lenses or whatever. It will be powered by a Qualcomm chip. We'll see which one it is. And it's going to be powered by Android. So basically the OEM model, Android's historic OEM model, is going to come to a new form factor here.
I could see some success here. Like, in one regard, the OEM model makes sense because Facebook has already been using Android for VR things. So it would make sense for other companies to be able to leverage that same thing, and for Google to put efforts into VR that end up benefiting Meta, and then maybe Meta contributes some things back to Android. Who knows? The real question, though, I think, is what they want their headset to do. Because the Vision Pro, from everything that, at least from the way that I look at it, the Vision Pro is very strongly emphasizing productivity, where Google doesn't have an ecosystem to leverage for productivity. Because
what do you mean?
Like, okay, let's look at, I want to use a desktop for a little bit. Like, I want to use an actual desktop. I have my Chromebook, which is fine. And I really don't...
Hey, Kyle, Android desktop mode.
Okay.
I think you're the expert on that. Great.
Let's do Android desktop mode. Let's say I want to do any coding projects. Can I do any coding projects? No, not really. Let's say I wanted to edit a video. That's coming. It's beginning to be here, but it's still not great. So...
No, I get what you mean. So it's the web, though. The answer to that is the web. First, we have to talk about Android getting a desktop-cast browser. That's a whole thing, which I think Android for tablets is still... No, please bring Chrome OS or whatever. Android needs a better browser, 100%. But before that, web apps. I think the issue not the issue. I think the answer is the web apps. You have Google Docs, you have Gmail, you have that whole suite. It was interesting how many of the websites that Apple showed yesterday was almost one-to-one. I mean, heck, they showed Mac OS. They showed using your full desktop on it. I'm not sure how optimized that is, but it exists. But I think like Google has always been the big proponent of web apps and them getting more powerful and WebGL and just all that stuff. I think there's that they could be heavily that could be a building piece that leverages all the power of the web, all of their work in Chrome, and brings it onto a headset. But yeah, in terms of like, I don't know, do they need to make an IDE in the web? Do they need to make a web version of Android Studio? That's a very good point.
Yeah, and honestly, to a certain extent, I think they do. I mean, there are other projects like that exist. Like Microsoft has a web-based version of Visual Studio Code, so I appreciate that much. I mean, that is an answer. Yeah, actually, that does make some sense. It puts some of the work onto the cloud and would help make up for the fact that whatever Qualcomm chip ends up in it, it is not going to be an Apple M2 chip. So it's the performance difference is going to be obvious. So it's good that the web could be an answer to those potential things by offloading some of this work to the cloud. Do you think that they would leverage?
Which is rumored.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that they would?
That was rumored.
Wow. So like the immersive stream for XR platform?
Yeah. Google Earth for one thing, and Google Maps Immersive Stream is like 100% like the first experience they demo in the headset, because zooming around the city, that's cool for like 5 minutes. I think that feels like the demo for Google. Like they have that content, though the buildings need to be a bit higher res, but I digress. But yeah, that's something they can do immediately. The cloud streaming. It kind of seems that Google and maybe its partners are aware of the limitations of what like Apple Silicon is that far ahead. But yeah, that's the web again. How the web and the cloud streaming technology could be. That's how Stadia lives again.
No. Do we get points every time we find an excuse to say Stadia on this podcast?
Yeah, why not? Let's institute that. Okay. So that is Alphabet Scoop for this week. You can find us on YouTube and Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and all your other favorite podcasting platforms. Hopefully we're back to a Monday recording and Tuesday posts in the coming weeks. But until then, thanks for listening and see you next time.
See ya.